to have you run around with microphones to people. So if they want to
Well, is
talk.
that where we start, or you open? No.
I know you would.
Okay, you want me to go? You want me to go? There's Marcus is here. Yeah. He should introduce you as saying that you're
Yeah, I'm gonna get
okay. Yep. She's just
I've been informed a quorum is present, and I have examined the warrant, so I'd like to formally open the 2017 Deerfield Town Meeting. I've asked Wendy Foxman to stand and give us her invocation for this evening.
You can read along. It's inside the cover of the handout. Welcome to Deerfield Town Meeting. We have come together in civil assembly as a community in a tradition that is older than our state itself. We come together to make decisions about our community. As we deliberate, let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying, I am right, and saying, I believe I am right. And that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people, with hopes and dreams as true and as high as ours. And let us always remember that, in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have.
I'd ask that those of you who are comfortable to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I know when everyone was checking in, you were reminded that these two sections are for voters, registered voters in Deerfield. If you're a non-voter, the section on the far right is where you'd be sitting, and we'll be counting votes within these two sections. So, I did want to just take a moment and go through the town meeting packet that you received when you came in. It really is a critical component of tonight. There's been a lot of effort that's been put into it to get us here. So, the initial section shows the bylaws. And town meetings are a bit unique in that they are run by a very specific set of rules that are a combination of parliamentary procedure, the town bylaws. So my role is to assist in making sure those laws are enforced here tonight. But the laws are listed throughout the bylaws. If you have questions, you can refer to those as well or rise to a point of order. The next section shows the warrant, and the warrant is what is advertised and shows the articles that will be acted on this evening. So you often hear the term warrant, you hear the term article, and you hear motions. The motions may differ slightly from the articles, and that is allowed. The articles are meant to give you a general idea of what's being discussed, and then the motions will be the specific things you act on this evening. In terms of process this evening, if you wish to speak, we'd ask that you stand. There are two FCAT volunteers that are here with two microphones. They will bring the microphone to you, wait to be called on, and make your statement at that point. If you could just state your name when you do that, and make sure you amplify your voice so we can hear you at the front of the room as well. So again, in terms of process, the proponents of each of the motions will speak first. After the motion is seconded, there'll be an opportunity for everyone to speak, ask questions, and then after that is complete, we'll vote on those matters as they come forward. So I'd like to start by introducing the head table. I'm Daniel Graves, the town moderator.
Lisa Mead, Town Council.
Wendy Foxman, Town Administrator.
Barbara Hancock, Tax Collector, Treasurer, and Town Clerk.
Brenda Hill, Town Accountant.
Kip Camosa, Selectman.
Carolyn Ness, Selectman.
Trevor McDaniel, Selectman.
Skip Olmsted, Finance Committee.
John Pachurk, Finance Committee.
John Pereski, Finance Committee, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, and Sewer Committee.
Jeff Upton, Finance Committee, Capital Improvement Committee, and the Sewer Study Committee.
Bruce Hunter, Finance Committee.
Bruce St. Peters, Finance Committee, Sewer Study Committee.
Mary Stakarsky, Finance Committee and Personnel Board.
And just before we start with the first article, I do want to just express my thanks to Peter James, who served as town moderator for the town of Deerfield for the past 36 years. his service to this town, his knowledge of this town, and his professionalism has been something that's remarkable, and the time that he has committed to this town in 36 years has been something that we'll be forever grateful for, so I do want to thank Peter. So with that, I'll start with the initial moderator motions, and I have 3 motions this evening. The first is that I move that the reading of all articles be waived, and that prior to the reading of a motion under the article, the moderator briefly summarizes the content of the article to be considered, and further, that unless objection is raised, the reading of detailed motions be waived, where the article is printed can, in the opinion of the moderator, be incorporated by reference into any motion presented. Thank you. The purpose of this motion is simply that we can consolidate the motions to a brief summary and then allow the discussion to occur. Any questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second motion, I move that the following people be allowed to address the audience during the town meeting: Attorney Lisa Mead, Town Council; Brenda Hill, Town Accountant; Wendy Foxman, Town Administrator; Sarah Woodbury, Tilton Library Director; Dr. Lynn Carey, Superintendent; Patricia Kavanaugh, Business Manager, Frontier Regional; Janine Heil, Principal, Deerfield Elementary; Richard Martin, Superintendent, Franklin County Tech School; and Rachel Cabras, Business Manager, Franklin County Tech School. Again, only voters are allowed to speak at town meeting. These individuals that I've just listed have information that may be helpful in deliberations this evening, so if they do wish to speak, this motion allows them to do so. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The third motion, I move that in the case of a recusal or absence of the moderator, Albert Olmsted shall serve as assistant moderator. The purpose of this is if for some reason I'm unable to act on a matter before you this evening, that Mr. Olmsted would step in my place for that matter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The first article this evening, town reports. Mr. Camosa?
I move that the town hear the reports of the Select Board, the Deerfield School Committee, and all other town offices, boards, committees, and commissions. The town reports were available at the door, and additional copies will be available at the town offices.
This is a standard article that every committee in the town of Deerfield presents an annual report, and those are available, as Mr. Camosa said, at the town office. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 2, Mr. McDaniel.
I move that the town establish the salaries and compensation of the elected officers of the town as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Mr. McDaniel, brief comment on the article?
Standard.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 3 are the gifts from the nonprofit organizations within Deerfield. Ms. Ness?
I move the town acknowledge the following monetary gifts made in the last 12 months in appreciation for services rendered. Deerfield Academy, $115,400. Eaglebrook School, $26,000. Historic Deerfield, $15,000. Woman Hill, $3,555, and Bement School, $3,000.
Second.
This is just an acknowledgement of the gifts made by the nonprofits within Deerfield. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Ness?
I move the town acknowledge the following monetary pledges towards the cost of the replacement of the elementary school roof, which was completed in the summer of 2016. These pledges are paid over a period of 5 or 10 years for the total amount listed. Deerfield Academy, $105,000. Eaglebrook School, $75,000. Historic Deerfield, $25,000. Bement School, $20,000. Pledges received to date have been Historic Deerfield, $5,000, and Bement School, $2,000.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? I'm sorry?
Aye.
Just grab a microphone.
No, I've been going to these meetings for many years, and there's been a fair amount of rancor amongst certain members of this body with the nonprofits in the town not paying taxes. And I would just like to thank the nonprofits for the elementary school roof. It's a big thing for us, and I think Mr. Cutterback had something to do with this. Is that right? Yes, but I think you kind of organized the thing going. So I just, like to appreciate what people are doing for us. They don't have to pay taxes. They're gifting. It's not a gift in any other representation of services rendered. But I just, I think really we ought to appreciate it. Thank you.
Second.
Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Ness?
I move the town acknowledge the following monetary donations made during the last 12 months towards the School Resource Officer Program. Deerfield Academy, $30,000. Bement School, $1,000.
Second.
Ms. Ness, would you like to comment further on that?
As Tom said, it's wonderful. Nobody has to do anything. So yes, there has always been issues, but we are very much appreciative, and especially as times get tighter, of any gift that we receive. We really appreciate it.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 4 deals with the transfer of income interest for the library. Mr. Camosa?
I move that the town transfer the interest of $1,050 earned for the preceding year from the Dickinson Library Trust Fund as followed. $892 to the Tilton Library for library use and $158 to Frontier Regional School for library use.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 5 deals with the town's revolving funds. Mr. McDaniel?
I move the town amend Chapter 20 of the Town of Deerfield General Bylaws by adding a new section 20-3 to establish and authorize revolving funds for use by certain town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2, or take any other action relative thereto in the town of Deerfield as follows. Chapter 20, Finance, Section 20-3, Departmental Revenue Revolving Funds. A, Purpose. 1, this bylaw establishes and authorizes revolving funds for use by town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers in connection with the operations of programs or activities that generate fees, charges, or other receipts to support all or some of the expenses of those programs and activities. These revolving funds are established under and governed by General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2. B, expenditure limitations. 1, a department or agency head, board, committee, or officer may incur liabilities against and spend monies from a revolving fund established and authorized by this bylaw without further appropriation, subject to the following limitations. A, fringe benefits of full-time employees whose salaries or wages are paid from the fund shall also be paid from the fund. B, no liability shall be incurred in excess of the available balance of the fund. C, the total amount spent during a fiscal year shall not exceed the amount authorized by town meeting on or before July 1st of that fiscal year, or any increased amount of that authorization that is later approved during that fiscal year by the Select Board and Finance Committee. C, interest. 1, interest earned on monies credited to a revolving fund established by this bylaw shall be credited to the general fund. D, procedures and reports. 1, except as provided in General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2, and this bylaw, the laws, charter provisions, bylaws, rules, regulations, policies, and procedures that govern the receipt and custody of town monies and the expenditure of payment of town funds shall apply to the use of a revolving fund established and authorized by this bylaw. The town accountant shall include a statement on the collections credited to each fund, the encumbrances and expenditures charged to the fund, and the balances available for expenditure. In the regular report, the town accountant provides the department, board, committee, agency, or officer on appropriations made for its use. E, authorized revolving funds. The table establishes A, each revolving fund authorized for use by town department, board, committee, agency, or officer. B, the department or agency head, board, committee, or officer authorized to spend from each fund. C, the fees, charges, and other monies charged and received by the department, board, community, agency, or officer in connection with the program of activity for which the fund is established that shall be credited to each fund by the town accountant. D, the expenses of the program or activity for which each fund may be used. Any restrictions, any restrictions or conditions on expenditures from each fund. F, any reporting or other requirements that apply to each fund. Finally, G, the fiscal years each fund shall operate under this bylaw.
I'll
May I have a
second that.
second?
Second it twice. It's a mouthful.
So, go ahead. Make a comment?
Mr. McDaniel, if you can just include in your motion to refer to the tables that are included behind it?
Yes. So refer to the tables included behind. These changes in state law that changes in the state law that municipal revolving funds with town meeting authorization be managed via town bylaw. The specified funds and their spending limits will continue to be authorized by town meeting. During this transition year, per guidance from the Mass Department of Revenue, we will both adopt the bylaw and vote as has been the custom. So this is a change to the Municipal Modernization Act.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. I'm Lily Dwight, 45 South Mill River Road in South Deerfield. And I have a question that it said that the reporting requirements that applied to each fund would be illustrated in the Table 1, and I don't see that. That's section E.
It says any.
Point F, any reporting or other requirements that apply to each fund. So are there no reporting requirements? So what's the oversight then? I guess I don't understand that. Is this just a blind approval by committee?
Maybe I could, Mr. Moderator?
Of course.
Maybe I could provide a little background, and then Brenda might add to this. So under the Municipal Modernization Act that was passed last summer by the state legislature, they made a determination that instead of town meetings voting to establish revolving funds every single year, that they establish a bylaw which essentially sets forth what the statutory requirements are with regards to the revolving funds. And that in the bylaw, you establish what the revolving funds will be, but then by a separate vote, you establish the amount. And so the reporting requirements will continue to be those who spend, and then the accountant has to keep track of those receipts and expenditures, and those are then reported, I believe, on the tax recap sheet to the state. So that doesn't change at all. But essentially the terms of the bylaw are taken directly from the statute as a requirement from the statute.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that.
Mr. Wade?
So I'm John Wade. I'm the chair of the planning board, and this is a surprise to me, first of all, and the planning board is listed on here, so I guess we would have been nice to have run this by us. But under the uses of funds, if we vote on this tonight, are we really restricted to only activities and expenses related to proposal and permit reviews. This revolving fund is for other uses that the planning board determines we need to do for planning board purposes, and as you notice in the budget later on, we want to ask for less money from the operating budget because we want to be able to use funds from this. So I want to make sure that's not too restricted.
I'll try to respond to that, John. The Planning Board revolving fund has always been a 53E.5 fund, and it's always been voted at town meeting, so there's nothing new there. And I don't know all of the history, but the way I understand it, this fund was set up to collect A&R application fees, and so the expenses that could be spent against that are expenses that relate to those application fees. DOR has not given us any more direction other than that. I understand our FERCOG technical assistance fees can still be applied against that, but things like general bylaw change costs, those would go against your line item appropriation.
So I guess I just want to make sure that those few words, activities and expenses related to proposal and permit reviews and other activities necessary by the planning board or something. I just don't want to be restricted.
I suppose it could be.
Mr. Waite, do you want to propose that as an amendment, or how best to handle that?
This has been the language that we've used all of the past years, but if you would like to add that language, I would certainly accept that.
So if I could, this is the same language you've had every year, and you've been allowed to use the funds to support the planning board activities. So I think you're reading the language too limiting. It's not only to the applications that come before you, but the work that you do.
All right, just want to make sure everybody hears that.
Mr. St. Peter.
On the table up top there, is the public health and safety line still a legitimate line? Then, Mr. Moderator, I would like to make amendment to that. I would like to make a motion to amend Table 1, Public Health and Safety, use of funds column to read, in quotes, service, activities, and expenses related to providing public health and safety services, excluding capital equipment and real estate of $10,000 or more.
He needs to get it to you in writing.
Second.
Mr. St. Peter, I've made a note on that, but any other amendments, if we can get those in writing, we appreciate it, just so we can have an accurate record. There was a second on the motion?
Yes, sir.
So before the town at this point is a motion to amend Mr. McDaniel's motion. So at this point, the discussion will be limited to that amendment. So are there any questions or comment on the motion as amended by Mr. St. Peter? Mr. St. Peter, would you like to comment further on the request for the amendment?
Yes, I would. Revolving funds do not require review of expenditures by other than committees such as the Capital Improvement or Finance. This additional wording would at least require the review of the Capital Improvement and Planning Committee before using any monies for capital equipment or real estate of $10,000 or more.
Chief?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I apologize for waiting for the microphone, but I want people at home that are watching it to be able to hear me. And if I just speak to you, they can't hear me. So ultimately, I'm responsible for this account. I asked that the Board of Selectmen create it about 2 or 3 years ago. We had a proposal from a medical marijuana facility to come to Deerfield. And as part of that, I wanted to make sure that Deerfield benefited from it directly. Anybody that's been following this across the state will note that Holyoke just entered an agreement where they're getting $50,000 to $100,000 a year. The town administrator and myself 2 years ago negotiated a deal with them that they're going to be paying us 3% of gross revenues. By their current projections of year 3, we were looking at $237,000 a year. By year 5, we were looking at in excess of $500,000 a year to the town. On top of that, in the agreement, it's listed that if they come back and ask the town to go ahead and dispense for recreational purposes, not just medicinal, they have to come back to the drawing board with us, at which point we were going to request more financial resources. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take a certain part of that and I wanted to dedicate it to public safety. But when I did it, number one, I didn't want it to be under my control. The Board of Selectmen 2 or 3 years ago offered to put it under my control, and I didn't want it. I wanted it in an open vote in front of the Board of Selectmen to approve any expenditure. That's number one. Number two, I wanted it to offset some of the costs of the police department, but I wanted it to be so vague and open in general that it could be used to the fire districts, to South County EMS if necessary, to Board of Health events if we want to start the drive-through flu clinic again. We left it so vague that it gives us the possibilities to do multiple things. And there was the reason why we left it that vague. I would ask you to leave it vague still so it encompasses that entire arena. And to me, that's why we have 3 diverse personalities on the Board of Selectmen to say, hey, John, you're right, or hey, no, the townspeople are going to come after us. You can't do this. So I would ask that you leave it intact. The Board of Selectmen have to vote on every expenditure, and I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
I just want to emphasize the reason why this account was initially set up was that absolutely every single cost related to the medical marijuana dispensary is going to be used again in this account. There will be no subsidization by the taxpayer, and that was why there's all kinds of things, and they're actually haven't even figured out all the things that we're required to do. So when we make public health inspections of the facility, when the police officer has to account for each single plant and plants that die, and they have to track it, that is all expense against this account, not our general fund and our taxpayers' money.
So with that, Carolyn, I'll capitalize on that a little bit more. These facilities are so intense that anytime one of the plants die, anytime something's missing, the police department has to go in and do a full investigation. They're tracked from seedlings right through to a mature plant, and it's literally ungodly. It's going to require resources from the town. And as Carolyn stated, that was one of our concerns, is we didn't want that passed on. Anytime they open a dispensary, they also have to provide, if they're doing medicinal, a form of edible products. So now they need a cooking site, which means Dick Kalashevsky's got to go in and inspect them multiple times to make sure that there's no health hazard violations. So all this kind of snow blows over and over and over. And I think that's pretty much why we set it up, and we set the limit pretty high. My goal was ultimately to start taking the cruiser that we get every single year out of that account and eliminate it out of the town budget. So instantly the police department budget dropped. And then I asked them about the school resource officer, and they said, sure, we'll fund that. That's a great choice. So my goal was to start dropping that stuff off and pushing it onto this account and lowering the taxation off the general police budget.
Mr. St. Peter, would you like to comment further?
Yes, I would. At this point in time, the Select Board has voted to allow a signal signature for warrant, so it's not necessarily true that the complete Select Board votes on anything. The wording on this does not cap the spending at $50,000 annually. Chapter 44, 53.5 allows additional spending with the approval of the Select Board and the Finance Committee together. So if there was expenditures going over and above the $50,000, all it is a request of the Finance Committee and the Select Board for further approval. This is a form of checks and balances. The executive branch being the Select Board and the legislative branch being town meeting. Through the Finance Committee, we're trying to watch where the expenditures are. It is by no means a limit on the expenditures if legitimate expenditures come forward. It is only checks and balances system for this particular fund.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't really understand
what the arguments are here. I wonder if the moderator...
Sir, if you just grab the mic.
Yeah, I'm Frank Schwerin. I live on 54 Sawmill Plain Road. I've only lived here a couple of years, but I don't really understand what these arguments are. There's been a lot of conversation about it, and I wonder if the moderator could describe each position. I take it the police chief is against this amendment, but I'm not 100% sure. So if you could, at least for me, describe the salient points of this, I would appreciate it.
Certainly,
Thanks.
sir. Fortunately for me, it's not my position to explain it, but I do agree that everyone would benefit from a little bit more detailed explanation of what the differing positions are as opposed to why you're advocating for them. So just in basic terms, Mr. St. Peter, can you explain to the town what the language that you're attempting to insert would accomplish?
Yeah, I'm not really looking for more detail. I'm really looking for a summary as to what the positions are. And I'm sorry, I just can't figure out what's going on here.
Certainly.
Do you want me to jump in?
No, Mr. St. Peter, if you could explain, you've made the motion at this point. Would you like to explain to the town what the purpose is?
The chief of police would like to have the cap at the two. The chief of police would like to have the cap of $250,000 is shown in Table 2, left at $250,000. The Finance Committee feels that a cap of $50,000 is adequate without further review. It does not limit them to a maximum of $50,000 annually. It only limits them to a maximum of $50,000 before there is Finance Committee review, which is a form of checks and balances on the overall system.
Mr. St. Peter, I apologize. That motion is not before the town. That's actually the next motion. You had added a request for an amendment to have the current use of funds language amended to exclude capital equipment in real estate. So if you could just explain what those exclusions would accomplish.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It was just there again, revolving funds in general do not require any reviewing by any committee, capital improvement, capital improvements, finance, or anybody else. It is kind of an open-end fund, and so what we're doing is recommending that there be a restriction on the use of any of these funds for capital improvements unless it has been reviewed by the Finance Committee.
That's not what you're...
And Chief, specifically to the explanation?
Amendment is just to limit.
I understand what Bruce is trying to accomplish here. Ultimately, to summarize it, they're looking for Finance Committee input. And so the key question becomes of the townspeople is, do you think that the Board of Selectmen is trustworthy enough to manage those accounts and oversee them? They sign the...
Again, if we could not interrupt the speaker, that's not going to happen this evening. If there's a question you'd like to stand and address the town, that's acceptable. But Chief, if you can finish your position.
So from my position, I think it comes down to the Finance Committee wants to review expenditures over a certain amount. And I don't disagree with Bruce. I really don't disagree with that whatsoever. But what I was getting at, John, was my point that the Board of Selectmen are very trustworthy people. And ultimately, they have to sign off on these expenditures. And the Department of Revenue has to come in and audit us. And Tom Scanlon's office then comes in and does an independent audit of the town. And all this has to be documented. I understand that the Finance Committee feels that that limit is very high, and they want their input, and I don't disagree with that. So I hope that kind of summarizes it a little.
Mr. Waite?
No, I'm sorry I spoke out of turn. But when you start framing something as a trust, I trust you as the chief of police, I trust the select board. I still might want to have the Finance Committee weigh in on some larger expenditures for the town.
Thank you, Mr. Waite.
Julie Cavaco from North Hillside Road. I guess my question is how often would that variance of a large amount be voted on by the town? select board without going to finance committee?
Can I clarify what the motion
Once a year, 18 times a year?
Yeah, again, the amount is not, there actually is going to be a secondary motion on the amounts that we're dealing with. It's the next motion. But right now, it's just a matter of who would have oversight over these revolving funds.
But I thought this had a $10,000 limit by Mr. St. Peter. And so if we have a regular habit of voting hundreds of thousands of dollars more than once or twice a year, that would impact my vote, because then I would want it to go to the Finance Committee. Whereas if it's just once a year and it's been standard procedure over the last number of years for them to just vote it in, that would also impact my decision.
And Town Council would like to clarify, so.
If I could, the motion on the floor is to amend the table that has nothing to do with the ultimate amount in the revolving fund. This body votes the revolving fund every year. The motion on the floor is to say that the use of the funds may not include capital equipment or real estate of $10,000 or more. Doesn't say anything about any more review. It just says you may not use the funds for capital equipment or real estate of $10,000 or more in that revolving fund. You can use it for all of these other reasons: services, activities, and expenses related to providing public health and safety services, except capital equipment and real estate of $10,000 or more.
So this amendment, as I understand it, would mean that the revolving fund could not purchase the things that we would vote on. We'd have to find another way to fund those items?
That's correct.
Thank you. I got it figured out now.
Any other comments or questions on the amendment? At this point, we'll call a vote.
Moderator?
Yes, Mr. Olmsted.
Julie left, I think, up in the air the question of who would look at, or whether anyone would look at, the purchase of capital equipment or property. Typically, those are activities that are done by the town meeting in most cases. And I think the concern that we as a finance committee had was that we were opening a can of worms, not to disagree with the intent, but somewhere along the way, my preference, frankly, would be to ask you folks at a town meeting to vote it. But that puts too many restrictions on it. Giving the Finance Committee the authority to look over and approve before the selectmen make a purchase seems to be, to me at least, something reasonable, and it's not obtrusive.
That's not what the amendment does. Can I just clarify?
Town Council would like to clarify your position, Mr. Olmsted.
If that's the intent of the Finance Committee, that is not what the amendment accomplishes.
Right.
The amendment says, right now, the revolving fund is under the control of the Board of Selectmen. And what the amendment does is prohibit the expenditures from the revolving fund of real estate and capital equipment of $10,000 or more, period. It doesn't require the Board of Selectmen to seek Finance Committee review of anything over that from the revolving fund.
Does everybody understand that? Meaning, we would not have the ability to purchase anything, real estate, or any item out of this fund over $10,000?
No, just real estate.
Well, that's what your amendment said, is that, or does she have it wrong?
Real estate or equipment.
Real estate of capital. Real estate or capital. So anything, real estate or anything of capital that we would want to purchase out of this fund, we could not purchase it out of it. We would have to either come to the taxpayers to pay for it instead of this fund.
That's correct.
Mr. Cuttyback?
Yes, I'm just wondering if we could perhaps have the gentleman who, Mr. St. Pierre, please reread the motion, because I'm a little confused. I appreciate council's interpretation. What I originally heard was something involving the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee, which normally have say over expenses above $5,000 or $10,000 on capital requests. And the planning board generally has to sign off on real estate purchases within the town, or at least say yay or nay, but that's another point altogether. I'd like to know what the actual motion is we're talking about. I appreciate council's efforts, but I'd like to hear from the proponent and the person, or the person who seconded it.
Mr. St. Peter, would you like to repeat the motion?
Okay. I would like to make a motion to amend the Table 1, Public Health and Safety, Use of Funds, to read, service, activities, and expenses related to providing public health and safety services, excluding capital equipment and real estate of $10,000 or more.
Exactly what that says.
Sir? Mr. Gilmore?
Mark Gilmore, 95 South Mill Road. I was on the Board of Selectmen for a couple of years, and one of the bones of contention... Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. I promise I won't spit too much. I was on the Board of Selectmen for a few years, and there was a rub that kept going back and forth between the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, and I'd like to know if it could be clarified. The Board of Selectmen is the authority that executively does the expenditures. The Finance Committee is someone who makes recommendations, doesn't, from my understanding, doesn't have the approval. It's a recommendation to both this body and the Board of Selectmen. Am I wrong on that? Is there something I'm missing in that clarification? It's strictly a review for recommendation to those boards or to this body? Is it any different than that? Is that correct or not?
That is correct, Mr. Gilmore. I don't know that that's correct.
Yeah, because when Mr. Olmsted was talking, he was talking about the approval of it before it goes to the
That
selectmen.
motion isn't before the town.
Okay. Sorry, I just want
thank
the
you.
clarification.
No,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Adam Sokolowski. Just want to clarify, I heard Mr. St. Peter's motion again, the same words of town council. Effectively, if you pass Mr. St. Peter's motion, you're limiting the use of this fund for any capital improvement or anything over $10,000 that has to do with a capital item or real estate. That is the complete opposite reason why that fund was established. And feel free, town council, to correct me, but that's how I read the motion. That's what's being debated.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Moderator.
Can I ask the proponent of the amendment to explain why you want this amendment? That might help us.
I'd like to answer that. There's already a bylaw in the town that major capital equipment and real estate has to be approved by, or has to be approved for recommendation to the select board for any major capital purchases of real estate. As this motion, as it's written here, the select board will be able to spend without that approval. And the motion, the recommendation, the motion Bruce is recommending is just making this revolving fund be in compliance with the rest of the bylaws of the town, so that they wouldn't be able to spend without review.
Someone from the select board like to respond?
It's not exactly what this is trying to do. This is limiting, this motion, how it's written and said, is limiting the use of that funds to $10,000. No. For those two items. So, correct. Well, not even without
recommendation.
approval, just limited. You'd have to say it was, you'd have to amend that to say that it was with or without approval or for approval, but you're just limiting the amount in that motion. Am I correct, Bruce?
If we can just direct the comments to
I
the
think we
town,
need to-
and also, these discussions have been had, so, Mr. Cuddeback.
I disagree with John, and I serve on the Capital Planning Committee with you. What I hear here is we're excluding any expenditures. We're not talking about an approval process that would go to the committees in question. I'm all in favor of saying, bring them to us for a recommendation, but I'm not in favor of excluding them altogether, personally. So I don't agree with this amendment. I think you need to come up with language that says, subject to review by the Capital Planning Committee, or whatever language we need. But I think that the amendment as proposed is not what you're intending.
Let's call the question.
I have a question.
I've acknowledged a question over here.
I just was a little confused about whether it was approval or recommendation. You're using the words in a way that makes, if it just means that the Finance Committee gets to look at it, that's one thing. If it means that they can't do it without approval, that's another thing. So that's confusing.
Doesn't say either of those things.
Did I hear a call to the question?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a second? Yes. The proponent of the motion has 7 minutes, if they would like to take that long to advocate for their amendment.
May I amend the amendment?
Not once the question's been called.
No, there again, it is not limiting the use of, for resource officer or anything. It's not limiting the expenses for resource officer or things like this. It's only limiting the expenditures for capital equipment and real estate only.
Mr. St. Peter, if your desire is to amend your amendment, you certainly cannot advocate for the amendment you have placed. We can vote on that, and you can make a further amendment, but otherwise, we're going to vote on the amendment as you presented it.
I'm sorry?
You've made an amendment. At this point, it's been called to question. So
Yes.
you have 7 minutes to state your position why you'd like that amendment to be accepted by the town. If you intend to further amend it, you certainly can take a vote on that amendment. If it's defeated, you can make a second amendment with new language. But we need to move this along.
After the vote? Okay.
Yes. Do you have anything to say on the call to question?
No.
All those in favor of the motion as amended? All those opposed? Aye. The motion is defeated. We're back to the original motion. Are there any amendments to that motion or further discussion on that?
You want it in writing?
Yes, Mr. Martin.
And at this point, Mr. St. Peter, we are going to have this in writing, please.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to amend Table 1, Public Health and Safety, use of funds to read service activities and expenses related to providing public health and safety services, excluding capital equipment and real estate of $10,000 or more, without review and recommendation of this Capital Improvement Planning Commission, Committee and Finance Committee.
I need to see that.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on that matter?
Can we have the, can we have the writing?
Have you completed it in writing? Mr. Olmsted has a question for town council. 1 second.
Part of the problem that we have here, is this on? Part of the problem that we have here is that we have a town bylaw or a series of bylaws that specify at least the Capital Improvement Committee having authority or responsibility for presenting to town meeting capital improvement articles. And this would seem, at least to me, to either violate that or to give the selectmen a way of going around that, unintended or not. So I'd like to ask the town council whether this how this affects the capital improvement bylaws.
I think it would be an exception to it because it is a revolving fund which said specifically what the fund and authority to spend was and the purpose. So it would be an exception to the capital improvement planning committee bylaw, which requires your hearing process.
So there would be no hearing process on capital items if this wasn't approved? But spending was from this...
If it was from this article for these purposes, within these financial ranges, that's correct.
Any other questions or comments? So at this point, we are taking a vote as the motion as amended. Would anyone like me to read the motion back? Mr. St. Peter's motion was that he would like to amend Table 1, Public Health and Safety, use of funds to read services, activities, expenses related to providing public health and safety services, excluding capital equipment and real estate of $10,000 or more, without review and recommendation of the CIPC, which is the Capital Improvement Committee, and the Finance Committee. It's a motion that's now before you. All those in favor? Opposed? The amendment is defeated. Now before the town is the original motion that Mr. McDaniel spent some time reading. So we won't ask you to repeat that. But,
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Mr. McDaniel, we have a further motion under that article?
Yes. At the top or? Right here?
Oh.
No, I think I'm at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. I move that the town authorize the total expenditures for the following revolving funds pursuant to general law, chapter 44, section 53E and a half for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017, to be expended in accordance with the bylaws heretofore approved. And I refer to Table 2.
You'll note the table that's up on the screen at this point. Is there any questions or comments as to the proposed funds and the revolving funds? Mr. St. Peter.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to amend Table 2, Fund Public Health and Safety spending limit from $250,000 to $50,000.
Second.
Mr. St. Peter, if we can have that motion in writing. At this point, there's been a motion to amend that's been seconded to reduce the public health and safety line item from $250,000 to $50,000. Mr. St. Peter, would you like to briefly explain the purpose in your requested amendment?
Yes, I would. This would limit the expenditures by the Select Board without oversight by the Finance Committee above $50,000. The Select Board has voted to allow a signal signature for warrants. This wording would require the Finance Committee to review any requests over $50,000. The wording does not totally cap expenses for public health and safety services. MGL Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half allows greater expenditures with the recommendation of the Finance Committee and the Select Board. This creates a system of checks and balances between the executive branch, the Select Board, and the legislative branch, the town meeting, via the Finance Committee.
Yes.
Hi, Lily Dwight, South Mill River Road. I'm curious about why limit public health and safety to $50,000 and Parks and Rec at $75,000 without an amendment. What and then somebody else is 20 and somebody else is 25. So could you explain, please, your basis for what's requires a review and what does not?
There is no track record for the public's health and safety at this point in time. The Parks and Recreation, there has been a track record that they are, in fact, using most of their fees upwards of that number, and that number has been in there for several years. The Public Health and Safety was fund was just instituted last year, and it does not have any fund at this point in time. And the Finance Committee felt that that was a reasonable amount. And there again, it does not cap it at $50,000. The Select Board can, along with the Finance Committee, can review it and change that limit upwards if need be during the year without another town meeting.
Chief?
I apologize. I'm not doing too good with this public speaking tonight. But again, I would urge you to use caution. $50,000 is a lot of money to us personally. When it comes to oversight and public safety as a whole, you can spend $50,000 between special requests of EMS, fire, police, or even Dick with the Board of Health doing inspections of this medical marijuana dispensary in months. And I would urge you to use caution lowering it so much. Do I disagree with Bruce? Not at all. But $50,000 can be expended very quickly. So we don't know what is entailed in opening this new facility. We don't know what the checks and balances are going to be. So I would urge us to keep it higher than the $50,000 that is proposed. Thank you.
Is there a second on the call to vote? Mr. St. Peter, at this point, you would have 7 minutes necessary to advocate for the amendment you've made.
No, I'll go along with the vote.
Mr. St. Peter has no further comment. All those in favor, I'll reread the motion. The motion was to amend Table 2, Public Health and Safety, spending limit from $250,000 to $50,000. All those in favor of the motion as amended? Opposed? The motion to amend is defeated. We're back to the original motion of Mr. McDaniel as the table as presented on the screen. Are there any other questions or comments on that? A second on the call to question? So for those of you that are not familiar, the call to question means that any debate is stopped at that point once it is seconded. The person who has made the motion or their designee has 7 minutes to advocate for why the motion should be allowed. So that's the process that's being used at the moment, the last couple of votes. So with that, Mr. McDaniel, would you like to comment further on your motion?
No.
All those in favor as the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. McDaniel?
Sure. I move the town authorize revolving. I move that the town authorize revolving funds under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53.5 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017, as set forth in Table 1 and Table 2 as described in the prior motion and printed above.
Any explanation, Mr. McDaniel?
Well, I think that, if I have this right, what are you pointing at?
It's under, the explanation is under here, previous
Oh,
page.
previous page. So the comment, changes in the state law that the municipal revolving, I read this before, but changes in state law that the municipal revolving funds with town meeting authorization be managed via town bylaw. The specific funds and their spending limits will continue to be authorized by town meeting. During this transition year, per guidance from the Mass Department of Revenue, we will both adopt the bylaw and vote as has been custom. So my second motion is to vote as by custom, as we always have. So that's why we're kind of duplicating things.
Any questions or comments? Yes.
Kathy Melnick, Mill Village Road. I guess my only question, and I didn't have a chance to ask it because someone called the question before, is actually where is the money coming from? John seemed to say it wasn't coming from taxpayers if he was going to use it, the revolving fund to purchase things. I guess
once
my
the
question,
medical marijuana facility is up and running, they will be funding this account, and all our expenses will be levied against this account.
And that's just for the top one, the public health and safety. The recycling is from the transfer station, and Parks and Recreations is,
From fees.
is from fees and softball fees and all that kind of thing.
so right now, really, we're not putting any money into it until
Correct.
this all gets going.
This is non-taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Actually, on all of them. They're generated fees.
Mr. Cutterback?
Yes, I think just for clarification purposes, on a revolving fund, unless I'm wrong, the money can't be spent until it's raised. So these are revolving funds. No money gets spent till the money's in it.
That's right. That is correct.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Just give me one moment. Article 6 is the collective bargaining deficit. Mr. McDaniel?
I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $22,500 to fund the police department collective bargaining agreement for fiscal year 2017.
Mr. McDaniel, if you can briefly explain the motion?
These funds will be used to pay for the first year, July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017 of the 3-year police contract.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Article 7, the compensation plan. Ms. Ness?
I move that the town adopt the following classification compensation plan in accordance with Section 3517 of the general bylaws, and the plan is included in your handout.
Second.
Mary Stokowski of the Personnel Committee will be speaking on this.
Town officials have been working on updating the 2009 classification compensation plan for non-union employees for several years. Extensive work by the Personnel Board, the interim town administrator, and consultants have resulted in this proposal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 8 deals with longevity pay. Mr. McDaniel?
Bear with me, guys.
I do apologize on behalf of Mr. McDaniel. This is another motion that does need to be read in its entirety, so
Okay.
kick back for a couple.
I move the town amend Chapter 35 of the Town of Deerfield General Bylaws by adding a new Section 35-42-1, longevity pay, which reads, or the moderator may choose to simply reference the written information.
No, you got to read it.
No, I'll read it. I'm kidding. So, Section 35-43, longevity pay. A, definitions for purposes of longevity compensation. 1, continuous service shall mean uninterrupted continuous employment by the town of Deerfield from the last date of hire. 2, employees who work regularly at least 40 hours per week shall receive longevity pay at the schedule established below. 3, full-time status is based on an employee's current work status. Prior part-time service will be used to compute longevity pay, longevity years, provided the years are continuous. Part-time employees who are on the classification compensation schedule shall receive prorated longevity pay according to the schedule below. B, calculations of longevity for non-elected full-time employees. 1, upon completion of 10 years continuous town service, a sum of $200 shall be added to that employee's pay once a year and once each year thereafter through the 14th year of continuous town service. That employee shall receive a lump sum longevity payment of $200. 2, upon completion of 15 years of continuous town service, a sum of $300 shall be added to that employee's pay once a year and once each year thereafter through the 19th year of continuous town service. That employee shall receive a lump sum longevity payment of $300. 3, upon completion of 20 years of continuous town service, a sum of $400 shall be added to that employee's pay once a year and once each year through their 24th year of continuous town service. That employee shall receive a lump sum longevity payment of $400. Upon completion of 25 years of continuous town service, a sum of $500 shall be added to that employee's pay once a year and once each year thereafter of continuous town service. That employee shall receive a lump sum longevity payment of $500. C, payment of longevity benefit. 1, payment of longevity compensation shall be made on an annual basis and shall be paid on the last fiscal year payroll. 2, longevity compensation shall be construed as regular compensation for the purpose of retirement benefits.
Mr. McDaniel, do you wish to speak on the motion?
I think Mary was going to speak to
Ms.
this.
Tokarski?
Mary, do you mind?
For years, the town of Deerfield has not had a longevity pay. This is for non-union workers. It's not stated in the, and maybe we should make an amendment to put that in there. It's for all the regular town employees.
Hi, Eve Brown, Wade 15 Keats Road. I have a question. Does continuous service, if an employee goes out on maternity leave, if somebody takes FMLA, do they lose the right to get any of these benefits?
No.
No.
So maternity leave,
Correct.
FMLA, they're protected.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I thought it did.
Is there a motion to amend?
I'll make a motion that we amend it to be non-union employees.
Wait a second.
Is there a second on the motion? Thank you.
Could we just have council advise us if we should, instead of saying non-union, should we say those covered by the compensation plan? I'm just afraid there.
Absolutely.
This is supposed to take care of our long-term employees that sit at the top and do not receive any pay increases, and so I think it's more clear, at least in my mind, if it is if it's covered by the compensation plan person.
Mr. Moderator, through you.
Yes.
Actually, it falls under the compensation plan requirements, and therefore the amendment's actually not necessary because it falls under the
Okay.
compensation plan, which only applies to non-union employees.
Oh, great.
Thank
you.
Mr. Presky?
I don't see where the compensation plan excludes union employees.
Well, the compensation plan covers all non-collective bargaining employees.
Where does it?
Collective bargaining employees are not a part of the compensation plan.
Where does it say that?
because collective bargaining employees are covered by the collective bargaining agreements and may not be covered by the compensation plan.
Ms. Tokarski, so currently your amendment, do you still wish to proceed with the amendment, or
So withdraw it.
if you could just motion's withdrawn? Or the amendment to motion, I should say. Any other questions or comments on that? All those in favor of the motion as presented, I'm sorry, in reading the motion, Mr. McDaniel, there's a reference to 35.41, I believe, and it should read 35.42-1. So just with that correction, all those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 9 is the omnibus budget. At this point, Ms. Ness will make the motion.
I move that the moderator read the amounts recommended by the Finance Committee to be appropriated under the article. Unless objection is made, each item recommended in the report of the Finance Committee shall be tentatively accepted as appropriated for the purpose stated. If an objection is made to any recommendation, such appropriation shall be taken separately, and the amount thereof and on the manner of taking the same shall be determined by the vote of the meeting and tentatively accepted. One vote shall be taken appropriating each amount so accepted as a single appropriation not to be exceeded.
So the budget is both on the screen behind us, and it's also on pages 11, 12, and 13 in the handout. And it's fairly important to follow along. The process that we're going to use, we're going to read each item that's listed in the budget. If there's no question on the item that it's read, then we'll proceed to the next. If there is a question on that particular item, you'll yell out hold at that point. Once we've gone through the entire budget, we'll go back to the hold items and address those one by one. So with that, moderator, $400. Selectman salaries, $16,000. Selectman staff salaries, $184,812. Selectman administrator expense, $10,900. Finance committee, $500. Accountant salary, $42,752. Accountant expense, $16,075. Assessor salaries, $8,000. Assessor's clerk salary, $53,477. So hold on that. Assessor's expense, $21,535. Clerk, treasurer, collector salaries, $149,989. Treasurer, collector expense, $27,975. Oliver Smith, trustee, $20. Legal expense, $30,000. Personnel board expense, $250. PEG Access Capital Reserve expense, $50,000. Contracted services, $189,511. Town clerk expense, $13,231. Conservation Commission, $800. Open Space Committee, $250. Planning Board, $1,000. Zoning Board of Appeals, $1,000. Agricultural Commission expense, $100. Energy Committee, $1,000. Town Office Building Maintenance, $90,400. Town Office expense, $18,700. General Insurance, $65,000. Police Payroll, $798,173. There's a hold. Police Department expense, $93,400. There's a hold. Police Department capital request, $42,500. Inspection Department salaries, $130,536. The hold. Building Inspector Department expense, $5,795. Canine Control, $16,674. Deerfield Elementary School, $4,588,851. There's a hold. Frontier Regional School, $3,588,786. There's a hold. Frontier Interest, $56,793. I'm sorry, Frontier Interest, zero. Frontier Transportation, $56,793. Franklin Technical School Assessment, $288,464. Highway Department salaries, $441,558. General Highway expense, $242,400. Winter snow and ice removal, $85,000. Street lighting, $40,000. Transfer station expense, $187,500. Test well monitoring maintenance, $70,000. Board of Health expense, salary, $33,507. Board of Health expense, $24,530 as a hold. Council on Aging, $200. Senior Center expense, $25,776. Veterans District Assessment, $9,868. Veterans Benefits, $30,000. ADA Coordinator, $250. Tilton Library, $169,972. Summer Swim Program salaries, $4,000. Tri-Town Beach expense, $16,242. The Rec Department Director's salary, $45,888. Historical Commission expense, $1,175. Veterans Day Memorial Day expense, $2,000. Maturing debt, $440,000. Interest on maturing debt, $194,946. Interest on temporary loans, $5,000. Franklin County Regional Government Core Assessment, $44,693. Unfunded sick leave and vacation, $10,000. Franklin County Regional Retirement, $421,044. Workers' compensation, $52,238. Unemployment insurance, $17,150. Group insurance, $920,989. There's a hold. Medicare insurance, $89,700. Medical Security Act, $50. So with that, we'll go back to the items that are on hold. The first one that I noted was the assessor's clerk's salary. Is there a question or comment on that? Mr. Kader?
Yes, I just like to know where this fits in on the classification compensation plan schedule. You're listing it here as assessor's clerk. I thought a couple of years ago we changed that. We don't have a clerk anymore. We have an administrative assistant to the assessors, and I'm totally confused when I look at the classification schedule and then look at this. Could you explain where this position is?
We have her listed as a grade 4, step 5.
What does that mean, grade 4, step 5? In what? Under what?
On the compensation plan. If you look, they're numbered. The very first column is the grade.
So we need to change this. Okay. So the title here should actually be Assistant Assessor, correct?
I don't believe she's an assistant assessor. I think she is an administrative assistant to the assessors.
This is the title that's been on the plan for.
They're the same pay anyways.
This is the title that's been used for quite a while.
That's fine, too. It doesn't say assessors, though. Does that coincide with the amount that's being asked for in the omnibus budget?
The grade 4, step 5, yes. With longevity pay.
Thank you.
The next item was the planning board expense of $1,000, or of $1,000. Yes.
My question just was, why was it so much lower than last year?
Hi, Lily Dwight, South Mill River Road. I'm curious about how it went from 7,500 for 2017 and then requested at 6,000 and recommended at 1,000.
Mr. Waite?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we can use money out of a revolving loan fund, so we wanted to not have it out of our operating budget, actually. So that's a fine number. I think we didn't get you the right request in time. So the planning board's happy with 1,000.
Yeah, what the plan was here, since you weren't spending the money, that it wasn't no situations where it was needed. If you don't have it in there and you need it, the Finance Committee has available the reserve fund, so we can make a reserve fund transfer to cover those expenses.
The next line item was police payroll. There was a hold.
Yeah, how you doing? Kevin Pulaski, 34 Captain Lathrop Drive. I'm just wondering about the close to $50,000 difference in that. Is that from the collective bargaining agreement or the school resource officer? Thank you.
The $50,000 difference between the appropriated last year and what's recommended this year?
Hi. The difference of the $50,000 is 2 years of the collective bargaining agreement. As you know, we already passed $22,500 to fund this fiscal year, if you will, because the contract was retroactive to last July 1st. So this is going into year 2. So ultimately, this is 2 years of funding in a row. That's why you see such a dramatic increase.
Police department expense. Yes, I'm sorry.
Could you please clarify, you're not requesting 2 years of salary increases in FY18?
No, ultimately, Bruce, one was added in FY17. We already added the $22,500. So if you look at the first number in FY 2017, it's $751,467 up there, but you actually need to add that $22,500 in there, which would bring that number up. So ultimately, we're looking at 2 years of increases from the 751.
Police department expense.
Your question is ultimately about the $16,000 increase. Thank you. What happened is through reallocation of funds, that money was pulled out of the town hall, what is it called, Wendy? The account that we take all the computer software out of.
Contractual services.
Contractual services, thank you. In 2010, our town administrator consolidated everybody's computer contracts under the town contracted services account. Change of administration, ultimately they're looking for true cost value of the police department and all other departments. So we took that money out of contracted services and transferred it into police department general expenses. Technically, there's zero increase. It was pulled out of one account and it was placed into this account to be more clean.
Inspection department salaries?
I will speak to that. We just are doing more inspections, actually. We have put the wiring inspector and the plumbing inspector and gas inspector under town expenses, and we collect the fees, and that goes into the general funds, and we are just, in fact, doing more inspections. Everybody is busier.
The Deerfield Elementary School budget.
I'm Janet Ward on 2B Tyler Way, and I would just like to know between the elementary school and the Frontier Regional School, their budgets for the elementary school was up $120,628, and the Frontier Regional School was up $100,760. And I'd like to have that explained, please.
Someone from finance or the select board? School committee?
The first thing that I'm going to let Patty Kavanaugh, who's the business manager, but I will point out that the Frontier Regional School budget, this is the town of Deerfield share. This is not the total share by any stretch of the imagination. Patty?
It's hard to hold this book and stand up and read and talk at the same time, so excuse me for not getting up. And first, I want to send the superintendent's apologies for not being able to attend this evening, but she has fallen ill and was unable to be here. We'll start with the elementary school. The increase is $119,628, which is a 2.68%. And most of what drove that was the collective bargaining agreement. They had a cost of living increase of 2.5% for this coming year. And also the central office share of the health insurance also drove some of these costs as well. We had a large increase this year with the Hampshire Group Insurance Trust. And that is basically what most of our expenses are. Let me now flip my pages to get to Frontier. At Frontier, our percentage, we came in at a 3% increase, so our budget, the net change to our budget was an increase of $311,859. And that translates to Deerfield's share of that being increased by the amounts that we spoke about. And the difference between the 3% increase in the budget and the assessments is based on the changes in enrollment over a 5-year period. So based on the 5-year averaging of the enrollment, that is how the Deerfield, town of Deerfield's assessment was affected, and I'm just still flipping to get to that page. So the Deerfield assessment actually went up 3.32%. And again, at Frontier, those same drivers, the 2.5% contractual increase and the cost of the health insurance for the employees at Frontier are really the two drivers of that budget as well.
Yes. Ms. Kavanaugh?
The Deerfield elementary teachers do pay the same as all town employees, and Barbara, I believe that's 70-30?
65-35.
65-35. At Frontier, it's 80%, 20%.
Any questions or comments? Is there a remaining hold on Frontier? Are both covered there? Any questions, comments? The next line item was the Board of Health expense. Ms. Ness?
Yes. The Select Board, acting as the Board of Health, has requested $11,000 additional dollars to have Vector Disease Control, Inc. do another year of trapping in town. The idea here is we were able to get free testing at the state labs, and the state labs, again, are going to test our mosquitoes. This is just for trapping. The idea is to have data that will transfer to a mosquito control district. The State Reclamation Board just voted for us to proceed. We had gotten a small grant to form the Pioneer Valley Mosquito District. And the idea is to form this district so that we could monitor and reduce the mosquitoes here in town. Tripoli and West Nile are annual realities now that we have global warming, and that means that the disease or the viral load is winter's over. The idea is to have long-term prevention and reduction through educational outreach and reducing your breeding habitats. And we plan to do that once the district is voted in September by the State Reclamation Board to do a ditch maintenance next year. and do some kind of lateral, bio discs out in the habitats of the mosquitoes that we are concerned about. The mosquitoes, there are about 51 species, and most of them are nuisance species. We have 4 in town that we're very concerned about. Triple E targets children disproportionately, about 30 to 50% mortality rate, and then the other 80% that do survive have some kind of impairment, neurological impairment. So it's very serious, and it is, last year was our first year monitoring, and there was fortunately no disease load, but we also had an extreme drought. So one of the things that has occurred over the years, I've been out to Kelleher Drive and Bloody Brook multiple times over the years to view people's stagnant water. So the idea is to form the mosquito district and have it on a voluntary contribution level, and we decide what services we want. And one of the services we want, I'm sure, is to clean our ditches out and to maintain our ditches. And to do that, we need to have data to show that where we're concerned. And we are concerned, the 3 areas in town is up Wapping Road area, the Bloody Brook area around Frontier Schools, and then Whately Road area. So I'm asking for a continued $11,000 to monitor the mosquitoes so that we can move on to this mosquito district next year. Are there any questions?
Question?
Yes. Go ahead.
Bruce Hunter. The question I have is, this is going to be a recurring expense of $11,000 a year, and how many years we have to monitor the mosquitoes to have enough data?
We're hoping to monitor the mosquitoes need to be monitored every single year. This is a contracted service. This is not the mosquito district. To join the mosquito district will be $5,000 to $10,000, a recurring cost. Then what we want to do every year is then up to us as a town. If we have a viral load that's huge, that we've tested and we found out about, then we will have to do some kind of action, which is far cheaper to do larviciding with, a commercial version of the discs, and they can, do it from an airplane even. But it's much better, and it's not that I don't think that we should ever adulticide, but it's extremely expensive, it's ineffective, and you have to worry about the pesticide ramifications. So we never want to get to that point. By being proactive, we're moving the water along, we're cleaning out our ditches, and which is a problem for everybody down in town here. And we are taking care of what I would consider a serious issue. The idea is ticks everyone knows ticks are extremely, Lyme disease and all the tick problems is extremely rampant. There's not much you can do except public outreach, do tick checks and stuff, but we can do stuff about mosquitoes. This is completely different than the tick issue, but what we've seen in a generation, and I've said this over and over again, my kids were out in the woods with their friends, Seth Cutterback, all running around in the woods all the time with their friends. Never picked a tick off of them. My granddaughter, same yard, can't even walk across the yard without doing tick checks constantly. Well, this is going to happen for mosquitoes, and the thing to do is to be proactive, inexpensive. The reason why this is going to be so inexpensive is hopefully we're going to get towns all up and down the valley to join, so we'll have one supervisor with an office, and we're hoping to use UMass students for a stipend and credit. We're working a deal with UMass so that these students can do the trapping, and then hopefully, politically, we can work it out with the state to have UMass labs do our testing, which will be extremely cheap. So this is extremely effective, efficient way to deal with mosquitoes, and what happened with the ticks is going to happen with the mosquitoes, and we just need to be on top of our game, and hopefully no one, we can avoid hospitalizations and nobody will have any bad effects.
So currently, there is a hold on a Board of Health line item. The Finance Committee had recommended $24,530. What I'm interpreting, Ms. Ness, from what you're saying is that you're in disagreement with that figure. Is that correct?
Yes, I would like to request $35,530. $11,000 increase.
So that's being treated as a motion to amend? Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
So the matter before the town at this point is whether the line item as recommended by the Finance Committee at $24,530 should be amended to reflect the Board of Selectmen's request for $35,530, with the explanation being, as Ms. Ness has explained, to fund the mosquito remediation, the mosquito work that she's described. Are there any questions on that item? Yes.
So question, the $11,000, is that for trapping and tracking the mosquitoes, or is it for remediation of their breeding grounds?
It's just for trapping.
Why do we need
run
to do
traps.
that? We know.
What?
We know where the mosquitoes breed. We know the diseases they carry. Why do we have to study them? It's like smoking.
Well, what you need to do is reduce the habitat, stagnant
but
water.
couldn't we just jump
But
right
there's
into that?
51 varieties or species of mosquitoes. The 4 that we're concerned of is where we identify, you trap them, and you check for the viral load, and that you're doing this every week. So, every cycle from June until October.
We can't just get rid of the standing water. We know that's where they breed. Why can't we just address
Well,
that?
no, we have not been able to clean our ditches. And one of the ways to clean our ditches is to show that we are concerned about habitat, breeding habitat, and the need to reduce habitat. And therefore, we would be able to, as a mosquito control district, clean the ditches out in town.
Sir?
Carolyn, are you saying that by monitoring the mosquitoes, we could access funds from the state to do the remediation?
No, we'd have to pay for the ditch cleaning and any kind of remediation, lava siding, all that kind of stuff is our expense. But it's far cheaper to narrow down the exact place where you need to lava side. It's also very important, very important. All of us are the same. If you go out, you get mosquitoes, they come into your house, you get a mosquito bite. But if we know that there's a Triple E or West Nile disappropriately targets elder people, and Triple E disappropriately targets younger people. They seem to be most effective.
Sir.
If you have that, know that mosquitoes are carrying Triple E or West Nile disease, we can send out a code red call, and everyone will be alerted, and then you become more vigilant. It's just human nature, and that's the whole thing. The other thing is, and would get 50 million phone calls if you have a lot of mosquitoes out and you cancel a planned sports event or some musical or whatever is happening in town. But if we know that there's West Nile disease or Triple E circulating, then I have absolutely no qualms about calling Lynn Carey, superintendent, and saying, we need to reschedule some sports events. They need to happen earlier. That's just, that's just the way it is.
Thank you, Ms. Ness. Sir?
My name is Gerard Pacherik, and I would like to know when this monitoring, or how long your monitoring is going to go on, and supposing a few of these other towns start spraying or trying to eliminate some of these mosquito areas, what is that going to cost the town, if you have any idea? Thank you.
What we're trying to do, actually, I was very surprised. We were supposed to have the reclamation meeting in March, and it was canceled because of a snowstorm, as well as having a mosquito night. Our mosquito night was canceled because of another snowstorm, and that was supposed to happen in March as well. So VDCI will come in this next month, and they will talk about what they trapped and what they did here in the town of Deerfield. But if we don't vote it tonight, I wasn't going to have them come back anyway. But hopefully you will support it. And it is weekly testing. They test all over town. But we have initial mapping of where some of the habitats of the 4 species of mosquitoes we're concerned about. They will continue to monitor all over town every week from June 1st through, usually it was mid-October this year. The amount of mosquitoes based on our first year of monitoring spike in the month of July, but it's actually in August into September that the viral loads are usually when that we're most concerned about, that when the kids come back to school. So they monitor until the first frost, or or they drop, or the mosquitoes dropped off. This year it was very because of the drought that we had a drop off before a frost, and they discontinued trapping. We were able to wrangle with the state, and we've had many meetings. Trevor has been going with me, and we were able to get free testing. So even though we're paying more for a contractor, we're actually getting much more testing because we're got a discount working with Greenfield, because Greenfield's doing the same thing, and we got free testing from the state. So we are able to test quite a lot in the town, and our argument was that we had no information. The state has not been testing here in the valley, and so towns up and down the valley have been spraying, not this end of the valley, but the southern end of the valley, and people don't want to spray. They want to do a more proactive program, and that's where we have the larviciding, and you do that by determining where the habitat is, and then you reduce the habitat and you target that with larvicide as well. And
Ms. Ness, I apologize for interrupting you. We have a $15 million budget with an $11,000 discrepancy, so we do want to air it and give it due. But I would like to hear from the town as much as possible so we can move this along. There's a lot of articles left to discuss.
Mr. Moderator?
One moment. Mr. Gilmore's been waiting patiently.
Is there some place where we can actually go and look at where the testing is being done? Is there a plot of areas? Because you mentioned 4 of them, but I know that there's a lot of...
One of the reasons we don't identify where the traps are pretty public in the sense we have, we talked about them, Mark, but the reason why they haven't been publicly... and people are certainly aware where some of the traps are. They've seen them, but you didn't want to have people go and mess with the traps. They're about $250 a piece.
No. My question is there some way we can do a general area, what the test present, numbers counting things, not where you place them,
VDCI would be
where you
glad to
actually
come.
looked at, for a
Yes.
general, because I know that there's a lot of things out on Eastern Avenue and other streams that are blocked up, as we've been through in the past. And I want to make sure that they're being considered the same as...
Oh, absolutely, Mark. One of the reasons why I have become an advocate for the mosquito district is because it's voluntary contribution, not the cherry sheet, which most of the other districts are. The state agreed to do our contribution only, voluntary. So we decide what we want to do. But as you know, over the years, we've tried very, very hard to figure out ways to clean the ditches. And one of the ways now that we can clean the ditches is because the mosquito district is doing it. And when I say do it, it would be similar to the procurement process, just like COCOTs have to, bid to be our contractors for the town. They would have to bid to do the contract here, the mosquito district contract here in the town. But hopefully we would get somebody like COCOTs, and they would go in and clean out the ditches.
Ma'am? Yes.
My name is Ava Gibbs. I live on River Road. I think for $11,000, considering our budget, our entire budget, this is tiny, and we should vote for it because prevention, we don't know what will happen if it's a rainy year, not like last year. It's cheap prevention. I think we should vote for it. It's very cheap, and we might need it very, very much. Thank you.
Is there a microphone over there? Oh, I'm sorry.
Liz Sorensen, Mountain Road. I hadn't heard of this effort here before. I moved out here. Sorry. I hadn't heard of this effort before I moved from Eastern Mass about 7 years ago. Mosquito districts, annual monitoring, annual budgets by the towns and the state departments are standard there. I'm surprised that this is even being considered an issue. So if FERCOG, UMass, the towns of the Pioneer Valley are willing to join together and have a mosquito district and monitor this, science takes monitoring, not just cleaning. And I'd say vote for it.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Very quickly, Finance Committee and Capital Improvement Committee didn't recommend this. We felt that if the state was if it was such a serious issue, the state should be involved with it. The state should be funding some of this. Does it mean that we should ignore it? No, I don't think we should ignore it, but I think we should treat it like ticks and just public, be aware of what's going on and address it. You can use your sprays off, deep, whatever the case may be. Also, we talk about moving water. We all know what Deerfield is. You're going to move water from one place to where? You're not going to eliminate the water around here. You would have to shut down half the town to eliminate water. So that's not going to happen. Also, the $11,000 at this point is just the tip of the iceberg. This could be a major expense if we're not careful. It could run away from us. So
each expense
forewarning.
has to be voted on by the town meeting, and it is not, water has to move, and if it has no opportunity, you're correct, it has to go down, further down the river. But we're hoping to have the entire valley sign up. We have 9 towns committed already, and we're hoping as we go along, more towns will commit. And then therefore, the water will keep moving.
Hi, my name is Bela Breslow. I live on 60 Grave Street, pretty wet. But anyway, I agree with the fact that it's a good idea to test and then do whatever we can proactively to start a process that will help us monitor something. And it's different with ticks. You can't do it with ticks. If you could, we should do it, but we can't. So we should start here.
Any other comments or questions? So this is on the, sir, yes.
Paul Olszewski, North Main Street. To the 3 Board of Selectmen, we talk about standing water, moving water. You know what a problem is? Bloody Brook. That has to get fixed. It's in my backyard. I've been there 55 years. We can talk about other things and mosquitoes. I'm not debating that. Grass, high grass actually creates a lot of the mosquito larvae. But Bloody Brook is not moving. So you talk about cleaning out, and for years, and there was money put aside for cleaning out Bloody Brook, but we're sort of ignoring one of the problems. The water is not moving down to the river. And we always get there's soft shell crabs down there, clams, we can't disturb them. They've been here 10,000 some odd years. Well, you know what? They're going to be here another 10,000 years. We aren't. So we need, I'm not saying the testing and the traps and all that is a good thing. I get that. $11,000, believe me. Working for the size bank I have, this is chump change. Spend this in the morning. But you're ignoring a key problem, and I know you know this, Carolyn, but Bloody Brook has got to be addressed. I'll go home tonight. After the spring runoff, the brook stopped. And what's that going to be by July and August? It's going to be stagnant. I have family, I have an animal, so $11,000, like I say, is chump change to me, if it's protecting. But I think we need to, long-term, look at the brook situation. And there's a number of people that are no longer here that said that about cleaning the brook out and letting the water move.
And any other comments on the $11,000 request to amend? The question has been called. The call to question requires 2/3 vote in the affirmative in order to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to call the question? Opposed? The proponent has 7 minutes, if necessary, on the amendment.
I just want to say I have been visiting everyone's backyard and trying as many things as I have been able to do. And Mark has run the bush hog and everything, but honestly, what convinced me about the mosquito district and why we need to do this is because we can address some of this issue in Bloody Brook. You have access, the mosquito district has access to private property to do the dredging, and you are exempt from most of the paperwork of wetlands regulations. And you also are allowed to address, issues with larviciding or adulticiding. This is really, it's important to do the monitoring so we can form the district and the district can go to work next year. You will have a warrant article next year on the cost of ditch digging. I will work very hard to have that. Okay? Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to amend line item 512-5400, the Board of Health expense, from the recommended amount of $24,530 to the Select Board requested amount of $35,530. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The last hold that I noted was on group insurance. If there's no questions or comments on it, Ms. Hancock, you would?
Yes. The group insurance budget that you're looking at pays for the health insurance benefits, the 65%. Thank you. That represents the 65% that the town pays for all of the town employees and all of Deerfield Elementary School employees. So as Patty said, the group insurance rates went up on average of 10%. So that's basically what you're seeing is the rate increase because of the 10% on the plans.
Ms. Ness, are you prepared with the final budget motion as amended?
Yes. But do I have a total amount?
Not quite. Oh. You want to move on to the next motion and then come back to it? There's only that one change? Okay.
Okay.
We're going to move on to Article 10 and come back.
Okay. I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $10,000 to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Ms. Ness, can you?
Yes. This transfer demonstrates the town's commitment to meeting its obligations to OPEB. This is the year that we'll finally find out what officially we owe, but it's well in excess of $1 million. So this is just obviously a drop in the bucket, but it shows that we are making a commitment of sorts.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the, I'm sorry, Mr. Cutterbuck?
Yes. I believe they recommended it.
Which one are we?
The OPEB.
10,000. Yes, we recommended it.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Article 11, wastewater treatment funding. Mr. Camosa?
I move that the town raise and appropriate $743,290 and authorize the selectmen to transfer as it becomes available said funds from the sewer receipts account established for such purposes for fiscal year 2018 for the operation and maintenance of the wastewater treatment plants located in the village of Old Deerfield and South Deerfield respectively, and for the sewer line maintenance.
Second.
Second.
Finance Committee, did you have a recommendation on this matter?
We recommend it.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, this is for the operating budget for both wastewater treatment plants and the sewer infrastructure and the related costs and expenses.
Thank you. Renee Clancy, Meadowwood Drive. Just a reminder to save money, don't throw these things into your toilets. I mean, that's a simple way. I don't know if it's incorporated in this, but that's a very simple way. Just be attentive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion as presented? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 12 is the South County Emergency Medical Services. Mr. McDaniel?
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $1,250,202 to fund the South County Emergency Medical Services Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 2018 and to meet the town of Deerfield's allocated share of cost as follows. Revenues, medical services fees, $450,000. Grants, 0. Retained earnings, $284,145. Deerfield's assessment, $267,117. Sunderland assessment, $162,438. Whately assessment, $86,502. Other is 0 for a total revenues of $1,250,202. Expenses, salaries and wages, $869,371. Operating expenses, $217,720. Indirect costs, $63,111. Reserve for emergency unforeseen is be $100,000. The total enterprise fund expenses would be $1,250,202. Town of Deerfield's allocated share of total enterprise fund expenses for fiscal year 2018 subsidy is $267,117. Total Deerfield allocated share, $267,117.
The Finance Committee recommends this article.
Any questions or comments? Yes.
Lily Dwight, South Mill River Road. I'm trying to understand, it said that the town will raise and appropriate 1.25 million, and yet it looks like really what we're supposed to come up with is a smaller number than that. Can you just explain that, please?
Yes, we're the fiscal agent for the South County EMS services, so we would ask to raise them, but our assessment is $267,117.
It's about 15% less than last year.
Yeah.
How did they arrive at the percentages that Deerfield is paying 51, almost 52%? Is it on population or use, or how is this broken down? And how come, I guess I want to say,
How do we get here? Sure. Well, it's in the, it is based on population and use. So Deerfield uses, about 52% of the service, and the other towns respectively. But it's in our agreement that we set up, several years back when we put together South County EMS, that these would be the shares.
It was based on the calculation that we used for the solid waste district. It seemed the solid waste district percentage everyone was very happy with. It had a long track record, so it seemed like a very stable calculation to start with. We had no history of usage, and actually our usage is closer to 60% as a town. So in a few years, we might have to review this. But at the moment, we are basing it on the solid waste district percentage.
All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to flip back to the budget article, Article 9. Ms. Ness?
I move that the town appropriate $14,240,325 to fund the accepted amounts voted and to meet the appropriation transfer $100,000 from the overlay surplus, $63,111 from the South County Emergency Medical Service Enterprise Fund, $2,700 from the South County Senior Center Operation Fund, $22,000 from the Wastewater Treatment Plant Fund, $8,228 from the receipts reserved for debt payment, and $237,292 from free cash, and raise and appropriate the balance of $13,806,994.
Second.
And that motion is for both expenditure and revenue, correct?
That is correct. Those amounts have been adjusted for the vote of the budget.
Any final discussion on the budget as a whole? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 13, capital improvements. Ms. Ness?
I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $49,500 from the South County Emergency Medical Services Enterprise Fund retained earnings, the sum of $71,000, and from the roadside mower revolving fund, the sum of $26,000 for the purpose of funding the following capital projects.
Second.
Do you want me to read the capital projects?
I don't believe we need to.
Okay.
It says special revenue fund.
Dan?
Yeah, it says special revenue.
Well, one moment, Mr. Ramos, I apologize.
It doesn't say revolving.
The motion I have is
No, she
revolving.
said special revenue fund.
Okay.
Ms. Ness, did you read revolving fund or special revenue fund as the roadside mower?
Roadside mower revolving fund. If I'm sorry if I misread that.
Correction to special revenue.
Oh, excuse me. It's the road, I have revolving fund here. It's the roadside mower, what?
Special revenue fund.
Special revenue fund. Eversource is paying for that, for us.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Mr. Olmsted, did you still have a comment?
Yeah, the Finance Committee does recommend this article, and we'd recommend the $26,000 for the roadside mower.
Thank you.
No, Carolyn, I think you ought to explain what the roadside mower fund
Okay.
is all about.
That will be fine. The Eversource, we are a member of one of several conglomerate towns. There's like Northfield, Greenfield, Irving, and there was one other town besides that, I think. Gill. In our group, every 5 years, a community hosts the mower, and they maintain the mower and run it out to the other member towns for 1 week to do the mowing under Eversource's power lines and wherever else they can do in town within a week. At the end of 5 years, you own the machine. It is in fact our turn this year, so Kevin is going to be in charge of maintaining the mower and getting it out for about a month of the year, and then at the end of 5 years, we're going to own that mower. Or at the end of the year, we'll own that mower. It's our turn.
Yes.
If I can just elaborate a little bit. Kevin Scarborough, superintendent. I'm also 11 West Street, South Deerfield. Very similar to what Carolyn said. The other towns get to use it for 1 week each. So out of a 12-month period, 1 month it's out of town. The other 11 months it here is in town. If we have another winter like we had last winter, we can continue to use this throughout the year. Again, this is a zero cost to the town because we order the machine, we get an invoice, the invoice goes to Eversource. Eversource gives us a check for $26,000. The $26,000 goes into this fund, and after the fund is funded, then we cut the check to the leasing company. This happens every year for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, like Carolyn said, now we have a $130,000 machine for free.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 14 is the Capital Expenditure Fund. Ms. Ness?
I move that the town establish a capital expenditure stabilization fund pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, for the purpose of reserving funds for capital expenditures.
Second.
This is a new fund that we're designating specifically for capital expenditures, and we're trying to pre-fund it because, unfortunately, as when we have bad budget years, it's one of the first things that go, and that we really can't do that. We can't afford that as a town. So we're trying to fund this, establish this account in this motion, and then fund it in the next one so that we have a little bit ahead for the coming years.
Finance Committee?
We recommend the motion.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries by in excess of 2/3. Article 15,
I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $200,000 to the capital expenditure stabilization fund.
Second.
This is to do the initial funding of the capital expenditure stabilization fund.
Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends the motion.
Any questions? All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Article 16, the snow and ice shortfall. Ms. Ness?
I move that the town transfer from free cash the amount of $117,102 to the snow and ice removal expense account to fund the shortfall of FY 2017. State finance laws allow for communities and towns to overspend their snow and ice removal budgets due to the unpredictability of the weather. This year's storms resulted in the need to appropriate additional funds. We normally wait till the end of the year, but we wanted to do it this year and get it out of the way.
Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends this article.
Any questions? Yes.
A little less than $600,000. Typically, the last few years, it's been somewhat less than that, but it does vary.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Article 17 is the Community Preservation Committee. Mr. McDaniel?
I move the town act on the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 2018 Community Preservation Fund budgets, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation.
Mr. Swedlin, you'll make the individual motions?
Yes, I'm Alan Sweetland. I'm acting chair of the Community Preservation Committee. We have two motions to put before you regarding use of community preservation funds and a couple of follow-up motions. I move that the town appropriate $31,000 from the Community Preservation Fund 2018 estimated revenues for the Deerfield Historical Commission to repair and for repair and stabilization of the obelisk of the Civil War Monument project in a manner consistent with the proposal submitted by the applicant and approved by the Community Preservation Committee. Said funds to be expended within 3 years under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, and any unused funds to be returned to the Community Preservation Fund as required by statute.
Second.
Any questions on the project? All those in favor of the recommendation, or the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Swedlin?
Thank you. The second motion before you is I move the town appropriates $6,500 from the Community Preservation Fund 2018 estimated revenues for the Deerfield Historical Commission to complete fencing on the north side of Sugarloaf Cemetery project in a manner consistent with the proposal submitted by the applicant and approved by the Community Preservation Committee. Said funds to be expended within 3 years under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, and any unused funds to be returned to the Community Preservation Fund as required by statute.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor of the... yes.
Bruce Hunter, are you going to replicate the historic fence that was there, or was there a fence there?
To my knowledge, that there hasn't been a decent fence on that side for a long time, and the Historical Commission intends to replicate what they've done now along Sugarloaf Street.
Which is not a historic replication.
You want to?
I don't think. I guess.
Mr. Zaire.
The Historical Commission can address that.
I'll speak for the Historical Commission. Hi, my name is Jane Trigere. In order to do the repairs we did last time on the front part of the Sugarloaf Street Cemetery, I had to show, and I did, that the fence that was existing at the time, which was made of pipes that were rotting away and rusting and all the rest of it, were not the original. I found quite easily a picture of Sugarloaf Street Cemetery with a fence all around it, not all around it, excuse me, the street and the north side, much as the one that is being put up now looks. And that's all I had to do in order to prove that we were not taking down an original fence. And in fact, we're putting up something that looks very similar to an earlier fence, which I cannot prove was the original either.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Third motion, I move that the town transfer $30,000 or 10% of the Community Preservation Fund 2018 estimated revenues to the Reserve for Open Space as required by General Law, Chapter 44B.
Second.
Any questions on the purpose of the motion?
These are standard transfers we do each year.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move that the town transfer $30,000 or 10% of the Community Preservation Fund 2018 estimated revenues to the Reserve for Community Housing as required by General Law, Chapter 44B.
Second.
Yes.
I just have a question about how much is in the Reserve for Community Housing at this point, you know?
I can't give you that number off the top of my head.
I don't happen to have that number on me either. I wish I did.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I do have a guess.
I move that the town appropriate $15,000 or 5% from the Community Preservation Fund 2018 estimated revenues for Community Preservation Committee administrative expenses.
Second.
Any questions? Yes.
Do you have a balance on that account? And how much administrative expenses that you have spent?
When we don't spend all of the administrative expenses in any one given year, they go back into the undesignated fund balance.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, I move that the town transfer $187,500, the balance of the Community Preservation Fund 2018 estimated revenues, to the Community Preservation budgeted reserve.
Any questions? All those in favor? I'm sorry? Mr. Gier?
When I first came to town, I didn't know what this Community Preservation Fund was, and I'd like to take the opportunity to explain to people that the monies that Alan is putting back, is allocating to open, what are they called? Open space. Open space, housing. These are funds that are available. We just need to get a project and apply for them. They're just sitting there, and the only ones who actively, regularly use these funds is the Historical Commission. So I invite the rest of the community to come up with projects and present it to the CPC.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Article 19, unforeseen expenses. Mr. Camosa? I apologize.
18.
Smith Vocational.
I move that the town transfer from free cash $1 for the funding and tuition and transportation expenses of students attending Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School for the 2017-18 school year. I wish it was that cheap. At this time, we do not anticipate any students attending Smith Vocational, but if that changes, this vote will allow a transfer to cover those expenses.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 19, unforeseen expenses. Mr. Camosa.
I move that the town transfer from free cash $90,000 to provide for extraordinary and unforeseen expenditures under Section 6 of Chapter 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017.
Second.
This reserve fund is under the control and spending authorization of the Finance Committee for the use in the event of an unforeseen expense during the fiscal year.
Any comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Article 20, change of use.
I move that the town change the use of the property located at map 15, parcel 159, from Highway Department facilities and Recreational Department facilities as so specified in Article 16 of the 2003 Annual Town Meeting, which land is more fully described in a deed to the town of Deerfield in Book 4507, page 122 at the Franklin County Register of Deeds to general municipal purposes.
Mr. McDaniel, would you like to explain the motion briefly?
So back in 2003, we were given a parcel of land just north of the fire station, and at that time we accepted this land as for use. We're thinking, I think at that time, that there was going to be a highway department there. It's no longer the highway department, a need for a highway department there. So we wanted to change it to more general municipal purposes. We might use it for a South County EMS
Which
building
is the
site.
next article.
Which is the next article.
Mr. Gilmore?
Just one thing, that land here. Thank you. That land was specified by the donator, so I would like to just make sure we do courtesy thing and let them know what we're doing for. You know, hopefully you talked.
Agreed.
You did, that's fine.
Yep.
We had,
There was no deed restriction on it.
Correct.
For recreation and.
No, we did not.
highway use. I was just out of courtesy, go back to them and explain to them what we're doing.
I know.
It'd
Did.
be an issue, but
Right.
from the courtesy thing.
We,
You did it, thank you very much.
we did.
we did.
Town council has a point of order.
Just the deed actually doesn't designate any particular use, it just grants it to the town, the inhabitants of the town, and then the town meeting vote actually had the particular uses, so.
Thank you.
That is, I believe you, but out of courtesy, it was specified. It was not general use, and we may have accepted it that way, but just out of courtesy, I'd like you.
We did.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries in excess of 2/3. Article 21, Mr. Camosa, lease of property.
I move that the Select Board is hereby authorized to lease property located at MAP 15, Parcel 159, in the Town Assessor's records for no more than 30 years on the terms that the Select Board determines that are in the best interest of the town for the purpose of housing emergency medical services.
Second.
Any explanation, Mr. Camosa?
That when the building is provided to the town, that the town wants to lease the building to the EMS service, which is the three towns of Sunderland, Whately, and Deerfield.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor of the, yes, Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have a question or a vote? No, sorry. All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Article 22, acceptance of the church property. Ms. Ness?
I move that the Select Board is hereby authorized to accept a gift of real property, namely that which is located at 71 North Main Street, South Deerfield, including .55 acres, more or less, from the Congregational Church of South Deerfield, and to enter into any agreement related to the receipt of the gift as then the Select Board determines in the best interest of the town.
Second.
This is to vote to receive the very generous gift of the church for town use.
Any comments or questions? Yes.
Hi there, Eve, Keats Road. So they're giving us the property as well as the building.
Correct.
With the building, are there some liability issues, some upkeep? Buildings need maintenance.
We intend to move the senior center over there, so there will be some cost to do that. It will be, we withdrew the CPA project because we weren't sure exactly. We wanted to accept the gift and then go in and figure out what we were going to do.
So that might come up on next year's budget.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I guess that was my question. It's pretty open-ended, and we're going to get a couple old buildings. I think the idea is good, but we ought to go into it with our eyes open. because I think these buildings are as old as the senior center is now. Make sure that there's some analysis, what it's going to cost us and what the use is going to be rather than have a big building. I know the idea is good, and I don't want to say anything against the Congregational Church. It's a great gesture, but we got to realize that it's going to not be cheap, maybe, depending on what you do with it. I don't know what you're going to do with it.
I think it will be far cheaper than trying to renovate the current senior center for the senior center.
I speak?
Yes.
I am a member. I can still consider myself a member of the church. My parents were married there in '55. To your question on expenses, I was served on the Board of Trustees back when the kitchen was all redone. That is a solid building. The town is damn lucky to be getting that building. Go up
I agree.
the second floor where you ring the bell and look on the walls, the history. It's a solid building. You're not going to have a lot of expense. It saddens me that it had to come to this, but I think it's the best thing to do. As a former Board of Trustees of that church, I was married there, I was baptized there, my son was. It's a gift. You ought to be lucky.
Absolutely.
We're very
Yes.
grateful.
We're very grateful. It's a very, very generous gift.
I'd like to just publicly comment. I'm Julie Cavaco, the chair of the local cultural council, that I would like the former sanctuary space with its stage to be considered for use by for performances, to enrich our local culture. So I think that would be another wonderful use of that space, and maybe the LCC could get an office there too.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 22,
23, I think.
23.
I move that the Select Board shall petition the General Court for special legislation as set forth below, correcting an advertising mistake in the sale of real property, provided, however, that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill unless the Select Board approves the amendments to the bill before enactment by the General Court, which are within the scope of the general public objectives of the petition, to be enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives in General Court assembled and by authority of the same as follows. Section 1. Notwithstanding the provisions of General Law, Chapter 30B, the town of Deerfield, acting by and through its Select Board, may convey a certain parcel of land to New England Natural Bakers. Said parcel is shown in Lot 2 on plan entitled Plan of the Land in Deerfield, Massachusetts, dated September 30th, 2016, a copy of which is on file with the town clerk in accordance with the certain purchase and sale agreement by and between the town of Deerfield and New England Natural Bakers dated March 11th, 2015, as amended. And Section 2, this act shall take effect upon its passage or take any action relative thereof. We're awaiting word from the governor's office about corrective legislation regarding the town's procurement of proposals for the former Oxford property. This article authorizes the Select Board to request our legislative delegation to file corrective legislation as a backup measure. We did not advertise correctly when we went to close on the property at the end of September. It was found that we only advertised 1 week instead of 2 contiguous weeks. So we have been waiting to close on the property and let New England Natural Bakers start their project. So we're hoping that we'll hear from the governor's office soon. But as of tonight, we have not, so this is a backup measure.
Sir? The microphone's behind you.
No.
No.
No,
Still on.
We went to close on it at the end of September, and that's when we found out that we only advertised 1 week instead of 2 weeks, contiguous 2 weeks, early back the year before. Yes, they're
Yes.
just waiting for us. It was our mistake.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm new to Massachusetts, but I don't understand why all of the motions are being read. There's a provision that was adopted by the chair that we could dispense with reading of these motions, and it's taking up an awful lot of time, which I don't really think is necessary. If you're going to explain to me why it has to be done, fine, or you don't have to explain it to me, but I really don't understand why we're reading all of these things.
Sir, unfortunately, the articles are what were published and the warrant, and these motions pertain to the articles. So the motions need to be read in order for any action to be taken. The articles were what were dispensed with in that early motion.
Well, I may be reading this wrong, but I thought the reading of the motions could be dispensed with.
No, the reading of the articles.
The reading of the articles, sir.
Pardon me?
I said the reading of the articles was dispensed, so we didn't have to read it twice, but the motion has to be read to be legal.
Okay.
We wish it weren't the
Thank you,
case.
sir. All right. Article 23, any other comments regarding that? Although, yes.
Once the sale of the property takes place, does that go into the regular fund?
Yeah.
The town fund?
Correct.
Yes. And we are able to start collecting taxes.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 24, Town Contracts. Mr. McDaniel?
So I move that the Select Board is hereby authorized pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30B, Section 12B, to enter into and negotiate contracts as the Select Board deems necessary for financial to the town for the terms of not more than 5 years.
Mr. McDaniel, brief explanation.
So the 2016 Municipal Modernization Act extended the length of time cities and towns could enter into and negotiate contracts from 3 to 5 years. So we're just extending this to 5 years.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 25, Assessors Contracts. Mr. Camosa?
I move that the Board of Assessors is hereby authorized pursuant to General Law, Section 30B, Section 12B, to enter into and negotiate contracts as the Board of Assessors deems necessary or beneficial to the town for the term of not more than 5 years.
Second.
Same as like what he said. The 2016 Municipal Modernization Act extended the length of time cities and towns could enter into and negotiate contracts from 3 to 5 years.
Any questions? All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 26 is a correction of American Way, and I believe there's a copy of the layout in the handout, last page. Mr. Camosa?
I move that the layout and acceptance of American Way, which was originally approved in Article 30 of the 2015 Annual Town Meeting, be corrected in accordance with the plan dated September 30th, 2016 by Harold L. Eaton and Associates Incorporated, and that the revised layout and acceptance of September 30th, 2016 be affirmed hereby.
Second.
Brief explanation, Mr. Camosa?
There was just an error made in the plans, and that they needed to be corrected, and that's what had taken place.
Any questions on that? All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries in excess of 2/3. Article 27 deals with minimal tax bills. Mr. McDaniel?
I move that the town accept General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 57A, to allow for a single request for payment of any real or personal property tax bill of $100 or less. So this is, again, a 2016 Municipal Modernization Act raise the limit from $50 to $100.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 28, purchasing. Mr. McDaniel?
I move that the town will amend the Town of Deerfield general bylaws by striking Chapter 39, purchasing. This bylaw is made obsolete by the state procurement laws.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 29 deals with building code amendment. Mr. Camosa?
I wish I could read this really fast, it'd make it fun. I move that the town amend Chapter 69 of the Town of Deerfield General Bylaws, building construction as followed. Okay, here we go. A, delete the following sections 69-1, 69-2, 69-3, 69-4, and 69-5. B, delete section 69-6 and replace it and renumber it as follows. 69-1, building permit requirements. An application for a building permit shall comply with the current version of the Massachusetts State Building Code. C, delete section 69-7 and replace it and renumber it with as follows. 69-2, building permit fees. The select board shall set all building, wiring, plumbing, heating, ventilation, and cooling HVAC permit fees. D, section 69-8 shall be renumbered to 69-3. E, section 69-9 shall be renumbered to 69. And F, section 69-10 shall be renumbered to section 69-5.
Yes.
Yes.
I couldn't tell you.
Take that as a friendly amendment. 69-4.
Yes.
This request did come from the building commissioner, and it's just an update to be consistent with the state codes, laws, and regulations.
Mr. Camosa,
But we
will
can
you
check
make a
into it.
friendly amendment to accept that 69-4 section E?
I will. I will make that amendment.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 30. Am I going to read that?
No, John Borowski.
Yes.
It's a long one. Article 30. I move to amend the Town of Deerfield General Bylaws, Chapter 10, Article 6, Capital Improvement Plan Committee, as detailed in the written motion provided in your town meeting booklet. Chapter 10, Committees, Article 6, Capital Improvement Plan Committee, Section 10-15, Establishment, Membership, Terms, Vacancies. The Board of Selectmen shall establish a 7-member committee to be known as the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. The Board of Selectmen shall appoint 1 member of the Board of Selectmen, 1 member of the Finance Committee, 1 member of the Planning Board, 1 member of the Assessors, the Treasurer, non-voting ex officio, the Town Administrator, non-voting ex officio, and 1 school committee member. The moderator shall appoint 2 members of the community. The committee shall choose its own officers. If a vacancy occurs, the appointing authority shall fill it. Appointments shall be for 1 year, except in the case of a vacancy. Section 10-16, Powers and Duties, Submission of Information. Section A, the committee shall study proposed capital projects and improvements involving major, non-reoccurring tangible assets and projects which involve 1, acquisition of land for a public purpose, 2, any construction of a new facility or an addition to or an extension of an existing facility, 3, any infrequent rehabilitation or major repair of a building, its grounds, or related equipment, provided that the cost is $25,000 or more, and the improvement will have a useful life of 10 years or more. Any purchase of any fixed asset, provided that the cost is $10,000 or more, and any planning, feasibility, engineering, or design study related to any of the above capital projects. All purchases, Section B, all purchases of capital equipment or fixed assets must be presented for study by the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, regardless of the source of funding. Section C, as amended, all officers, boards, and committees shall, by December 1 of each year, give to the committee on forms prepared by it information concerning all anticipated projects requiring town meeting action during the ensuing 5 years. The committee shall consider the relative need, impact, timing, and cost of these expenditures and the effect each will have on the financial position of the town. Section 10-17, capital improvement recommendations. The committee shall prepare an annual report recommending a capital improvement budget for the next fiscal year and a capital improvement program, including recommended capital improvements for the following 4 fiscal years. The report shall be submitted to the Board of Selectmen for its consideration and approval no later than the closure of a special or annual town meeting warrant. Section 10-18, capital program. The Board of Selectmen shall publish in a newspaper of general circulation a notice stating A, the times and places where copies of the capital improvement programs are available for inspection, and B, the date, time, and place not less than 7 days following such publication, when the Board of Selectmen and committees shall conduct a public hearing on said program. After said public hearing, the Board of Selectmen shall submit its approved capital budget to the annual or special town meeting for adoption by the town. The committee's report as amended by the Selectmen shall be published and made available in a manner consistent with the distribution of the Finance Committee report. The committee shall deposit its original report and any amendments with the town clerk. Section 10-19, expenditures for capital improvements. No expenditure shall be made for a capital improvement requested by a department, board, or commission unless the proposed capital improvement is considered in the committee's report or until the committee has provided its recommendation thereon.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Gilmore?
Yeah, the one question, earlier we had talked about the exemption for the special funds. The way this is written, does that kind of legally get out of that binding? I mean, it sounds like the harsh words of it says you cannot do this ever in the town.
No, the revolving funds stand alone on their own.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Yes.
I would like to propose an amendment to the section where it says the Board of Selectmen. I would like to propose an amendment where it says the Board of Selectmen shall publish in a newspaper of general circulation to bring us up into the 21st century, please, and add, and the town website.
How about or?
A notice, da-da-da-da-da.
Or website.
Pardon?
Friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment or website.
And. Why not and? Please explain.
So if you wish to make that amendment, we'll have to have you do that in writing.
Back here for another.
No, I think usually the question arises to publish anything in the recorder usually costs us $400 to $600 every time we do it. So if we can use media to do it on our own through the town website, all the time it saves us funding.
Request to amend or no?
Okay, but I recognize that there are still people who are not on the web, so the challenge is to make it as visible to everyone in the town. And many people don't get newspapers anymore, they go on the web. So that's why I'm proposing the and, although I do understand your or language. The goal is to have it visible to everybody. So I would propose, I will write it with and. That is my proposal.
Nope, just the clause you wish to insert and where it should go. Well, I can. So right now, there's just a motion to amend on the and phrase. So is there a second on that motion? Second on that motion. I have some. Second on the motion? Yes.
Second.
Okay. So any discussion on that particular issue? Yes.
Sorry. Is it required to be posted anywhere in town, like in the library or also in the town offices?
This particular matter does not have a legal requirement as to notice. Is that correct?
No, except for that it would have to be part of the agenda as posting as part of the open meeting law.
Right.
Right.
So the general public will be available to see it by going to the town hall or the library and the website. So
Yes.
the people that don't get the paper or don't have the internet, or they can go, there's another place. There's a bulletin board. Okay. Thank you.
After the amendment, or? Okay. Any other?
We have public access TV. What about that? I think a lot of people who are not here tonight are actually watching us. How about putting it up there?
Can I make a statement?
Relative to the amendment?
No.
No. The motion to amend wants to insert the phrase, "shall publish in a newspaper of general circulation and the town website, a notice." No, we'll take the notice out if that's okay, just to fit back in. Is there any other questions or comments on that? You can. Okay, I would suggest you put that in writing, and we'll take that amendment. Is there a second on the motion to amend the amendment, which is now the only matter on the floor?
Second.
Any comments or question on that amendment? So we're taking a motion on the vote to amend the amendment, which states that the Board of Selectmen shall publish in a newspaper of general circulation, the town website, and public access television. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. It's inclusive of the motion to amend, so I don't think any action is needed there. So we're back to the main motion. Any further discussion on that? Yes.
Pam Predmore, 36 Grave Street. I seem to remember that at a previous town meeting, it was decided that we were going to refer to our esteemed select board as a select board, not as the Board of Selectmen, since one of our members is female. And that, speaking of getting us into the 21st century, I would respectfully request that, in fact, they would be referred to in every item such as this as the select board. Thank you.
Any other comments on Article 30, the Capital Improvement Committee motion as amended? Yes.
If I remember. Where did this originate from? Was it Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee? Who supports this?
Capital plan.
Yes. The Select Board.
Capital improvement plan.
The Capital Improvement Plan?
Capital Improvement Plan Committee.
And I guess I'd like to know why, if we've had, why?
The Capital Planning Committee was looking at it as housekeeping for the existing bylaws. We felt that the description of what should be reviewed was vague when it said major items. To maybe the library, a chair would be major, and to the highway department, maybe it wouldn't be. So we tried to get a more definite description in there of what should be reviewed by the Capital Planning Committee. And the other major thing in here, there's a little bit of other housekeeping, is there were expenditures being made for capital items that were not reviewed by the Capital Planning Committee because they were not under an appropriation. And we felt the Capital Planning Committee should be looking at everything, whether it was being paid for by an appropriation or not. kind of it in a nutshell.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Article 31 is a citizen's motion. Mr. McDaniel?
Move to adopt Article 31 as printed in the warrant.
Article 31
like me to
is
read
printed in the handout.
Printed in the handout. Do I have a second?
Thank you. Yes. Are you, I apologize.
I
are
am
you
a town meeting member. I live in town, yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Sitting on the wrong side. My name is Joan Joshi. I'm at 58 Eastern Avenue. The warrant article you're asking to endorse a bill before, which is currently before the Massachusetts Senate and House, that would create a single-payer system for everyone in the state. A universal public insurance plan covering all medically necessary care, preventive care, dental care, and more. The United States is the only country in the industrialized world that does not provide appropriate health care for all its citizens. Importantly, those who offer such programs do so at substantially lower per capita cost than we expend for health care. And according to the World Health Organization, they achieve better outcomes in terms of life expectancy, infant mortality, and many other measures of healthy lives. The new administration in Washington is trying again to repeal and replace Obamacare, but their current thinking would reduce subsidies to Medicaid, as well as allows individual states to waive essential health benefits, such as coverage for pre-existing conditions, in order to lower premiums. That, of course, would be no trick. Insurance will be cheaper if sickness is not covered. Similar single-payer plans are under consideration today in California and in New York, where 40 union and labor groups have endorsed the bills. In addition, of course, Senator Sanders is promoting the concept of a Medicare for all on a national level. In my view, this would be sensible, but it will take some time. In the meantime, why not let Massachusetts again be a leader in health care, as it was in providing the model for the Affordable Care Act? The analysis of Deerfield health insurance was distributed, and that shows a substantial saving to the town, but it's already out of date. Insurance costs in fiscal 2017 were higher than in 2016, and I understand, in fact, we've just seen that they will increase again next year. If you believe health care is a right and not a privilege, I hope you will vote to endorse the Senate and House bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Yes.
So is this motion just simply to say that the town supports the House effort to pass this legislation on the state level?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 32 is an opportunity at the end of the evening for instructions to any of the town boards or committees. Ms. Ness?
I move to see if the town will vote any instructions to its officers, boards, committees, and commissioners.
Second.
Yes.
I would just like to move that the Community Preservation Committee and the Select Board provide a summary of the balances in their respective CPA funds authorized by statute at the April 2018 annual town meeting.
Second.
Second. I'm sorry we did not have those available tonight.
Next year would be nice to have.
Yes, we intend to spend them next year.
Any comments or questions on that? Do we need to take a vote on that? Yep. Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Yes.
I would like to instruct the selectmen to dispose of any property that is, that they're holding as besides real estate. There's cruisers, trucks, any of those kind of things. I'd like to know what's going to happen with those and instruct them to dispose of them.
Second on that? Second. Any comment? All those in favor? Opposed? Instructions made.
We've increased our recycling so extensively that the garbage bags are way too big and they just reek. We end up throwing them away half-filled, which then kills the whole idea of recycling. So I'd like to instruct the Board of Selectmen to look into getting smaller bags for our dump.
You don't need to do that, Julie, because we are in fact ordering half bags again. We had several requests from seniors who were not able to pick up the full orange bags. And so even though it costs the same for us to do the orange bags and the smaller bags, we're going to go with the smaller bags. We asked Kevin to order them.
Remaining proactive.
So they will be available. I'm not sure if it's in the next couple weeks. I mean, shortly. He's already ordered it.
Does that mean you'll have the large size and the half size?
Yes, that is correct. We eliminated them originally to save a few dollars, and it's just not worth it because, as Julie said, especially in the summer, people are, in fact, recycling, which is really exciting. But also, our seniors are just, we're having to put the stress of lifting up the full
it takes
orange
them
bags.
longer to fill a bag, and so it sits around for 2 weeks
know.
and tracks bears.
Yeah, so we took comments in and decided we would.
And mosquitoes.
We decided we would accommodate people, despite the impact on the budget.
Ms. Cavaco, are you satisfied with that answer, or would you like to continue with the motion? Okay. Ms. Melnick, if we can just grab your motion in writing before you head out, we appreciate it. Thank you. Any other instructions? With that, I move that the meeting adjourned to meet in the polls at the meeting room at the town offices, 8 Conway Street, in the village of South Deerfield on Monday, May 1st, 2017, at 10 a.m. for the purpose of elections, and at the closure of the polls, dissolve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you all
coming.
for coming.
I really appreciate everyone staying until the end. Thank you. Have a